This is Women's Day here on Manx Radio, and it is International Women's Day. The theme of this year's Women's Day campaign is Balanced World is Better. And this is all about how we can make a more gender-balanced world, celebrating the achievements of women, and really raising awareness of bias and taking action against equality. So a really interesting and broad-ranging theme, and lots of things happening over the weekend here in the Isle of Man to celebrate International Women's Day as a whole.
And there's a girl, wonderful girl who's spoken to on the show before called Anna Cottle, and she has recently been posting about this all this week long. She's had a photo on her page of herself sort of standing doing like a balance pose, and you're supposed to do the same thing and talk about what balance means to you in the world and equality. So that's one thing you could be doing today. And we're all in the studio now doing the balance pose, which is lovely.
We certainly are. We have invited Janet Lees to be with us here today. Janet, lovely that you could be here. Does International Women's Day mean a great deal to you? Is it important that we have a day like this?
I really think it is. For me personally, I guess it means several things to me. And I think it's a day of celebration, like you said, for what women have achieved over the past, 100 years or whatever, or longer. And I think it's also a day of challenge. So we need to challenge the vast inequalities that still exist. And there are certain aspects of inequality that really haven't budged over the last 20 years. And for me, I'm always really hugely grateful to the courageous women who've kind of gone before me. And there's so many of them, from the suffragettes right through to the poets of the poets and the writers of the late 20th century and right up to date, actually. Because by getting the women the vote and by giving women a voice, they've enabled me to have a voice, and they've enabled me to kind of, to maybe help other people to find their voice and use their voice. And that's just so important. Words are incredibly powerful. And so for me as a poet, I often just give thanks on an International Women's Day for being able to find and use my voice.
And it's really interesting, I think, that you said there are still huge inequalities in this day and age, because there is part of me that thinks we have absolutely no idea just how tough it was. Not even that long ago, if you're talking about the suffrage movement. We had Sophia Golden here from the Isle of Man and her daughter sort of spearheading that. Where do you think these inequalities are then? Who's still really struggling?
It's really interesting, actually. I do keep up to date with this, and I have done for many years, because I've always called myself a feminist, I guess. But it's maybe less easy to spot in our culture and in our society in the West. But if you look at it globally, I just found some figures, actually, which illustrate this. There's still less than 40% of countries that offer girls and boys equal access to education. And it's a fact that if you were able to achieve universal education for girls and boys, you would be able to lift more than 420 million people out of poverty. So that's a huge thing. And it has a huge effect on women and girls not being able to have an education, obviously. And then there's also, obviously, violence against women, which we've heard, sexual assault and rape. We've heard so much about that with the Me Too movement. And that is that's still going on everywhere. And it goes on here, unfortunately. It definitely goes on in developed countries as well, for sure. And I think, right from, there was a fact actually I read about, even when girls do get into school, discrimination often follows, because girls are at far greater risk of sexual violence, harassment and exploitation in school, wherever they come from. So those are kind of sort of the global, just a couple of examples. But I think here I found this about the pay gap, which is really interesting. It's shocking, actually. So this is over the last decade. A male graduate could expect to earn 20% more than a female graduate just because he's a male. And for non-degree holders, the gap is 23%, apparently. And that kind of means if you look at it over the period of a working lifetime, an average woman working full-time from age 18 to 59, say, could lose £361,000 in gross earnings.
Some of that must be, though, because more women take career breaks to have their families.
I really don't know. I mean, this came from a parliamentary briefing paper on improving gender pay transparency. So I think it's an equality and human rights. So I don't know. I'd have to look into that more. But that's what I found. It averaged out at like £9,000 a year. And I think that's, you could be right, I guess. Yeah.
So if we're talking about trying to find that balance, which is obviously the theme this year, How do you think we can achieve that? Is it partly to do with our own perceptions of what we're capable of as humans? That, women maybe holding ourselves back, do you think? Or is it because the opportunities aren't there?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I was trying to think of my experience of work over the past quarter of a century. And, when I first started work and I was working for a company rather than freelance, I didn't question it. I did not question it. And in fact, there was no transparency. So you didn't really know really what other people were earning. So there was no transparency. But certainly, when I was thinking about, the way my boss used to behave, and this was back in the early 90s, he would just pat women on the bum and say, run along, girl, get us a cup of tea. Unbelievable. It's not that long ago, So that's slightly swerving off topic. But I didn't really question it in terms of gender at the time, because it was just, and I wish I had, I wish I'd kind of spoken out earlier. I've become more clued up, I guess. So I think it's about knowing the facts. It's about familiarising yourself with the facts and finding out and getting a balance for you as well. Because I think, women are understandably angry. And I can totally understand that, because certain things have happened to me and I'm very angry as well. But there's no point in kind of, going to the other extreme and trying to say that all men are, whatever. It's just a nonsense. It doesn't work. So it's about finding that balance. And I think knowledge is power. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a really interesting point that you raised there. And this is something that we come up against quite a lot, isn't it, Christy? When we talk about issues like this, there are those people who say that the balance is in danger of going too far the other way and painting men as completely awful in every situation. And that's not surely the aim of this either.
No, absolutely not. I think, as you say, balance is balance. It's about, that's what we need to remember. Feminism really is about equality. And in some respects, I think the word itself can do the sort of movement a bit of a disservice, because it focuses on the feminine, which, in times gone past from our side of the world, that was crucially important. We are in a much better situation now. On our side of the world, there are plenty of issues that need looking at around the rest of the world. We're just very fortunate that we've come this far. But there is that concern that now it is seen as being, as you say, too far one way, where actually we just want equality. It's about equality, and it's about, we are human beings at the end of the day, regardless of gender. We're all human beings. And I think that's what we need to remind ourselves about.
So, Janet, you talked a little bit about the power of words, and I know you have a couple of poems with you, and I wonder if you would mind reading us something which really does give us a flavour of how you view International Women's Day.
Of course I will. I've chosen one by a poet called Lucille Clifton, who is a black woman and a poet, and so obviously she was kind of facing two prejudices, being black and a woman, and this is kind of what this is about, and having to navigate the world on your own, I guess, and be strong. And she's an amazing woman, an amazing activist, an amazing poet. It's a very short one, actually, and it's called "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up, here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Wow, as you say, incredibly powerful, and just really brings home, I suppose, that everybody's struggle is individual, and you never know how people feel that they've been held back because of certain things.
That's so true, and it's something that I try and remember all the time, that, if somebody's off with you, or, in whatever situation, you do not know what is going on in their life, and it's about trying to have compassion, always, I guess, and trying to just hold back that kind of judgment, and just give respect, I suppose, to whoever it is.
And is this a subject that you have written about yourself?
I was just really, when I was thinking about it, there's a poem I've written which is actually about finding my voice, and particularly about finding my voice through using my voice in writing, in writing poetry. And I kind of like it, and I'd like to read that one, actually.
Please, that'd be lovely.
Okay, it's a bit longer, sorry. This one's called Something Else. I am a dumb waiter stuck between floors. I am a blank whiteboard in a brainstorm. I am a blizzard in waiting. I am the C minor riff in Twin Peaks. I am a Bic pen with a bitten end. I am the darkness inside my one untidy drawer. I am the baby moorhen's endlessly questing beak. I'm a piece of graffiti saying tease. I am the rain-soaked wall it's sprayed across. I am the liquid sway of our 15-foot willows, a coiled cancer cell waiting to spring. I am all of these things. I am a nail bomb of docks in a field of oxeye daisies. I am a box of roses in a Jubilee raffle. I am the ticket that wins it, the damp hand holding the ticket. I'm the air in the tent, the trodden down grass, the Formica tabletop with its rings of real ale. I am a money spider spooling down from the Union Jack bunting. I am Finisterre in the shipping forecast, the furnace song of a strong onshore wind. I am Bluebeard blue, the red of the wicked apple, harvest moon yellow, bin bag black. I am the gold tooth glinting at the back of Donald Trump's mouth. I'm the match that lights the candle in the guru's sacred room. I am the smell of petrol, and I make myself swoon.
Oh
Absolutely
my goodness, that's
brilliant.
incredible.
That image of Donald Trump is going to stay with me, I think.
I should say as well, and you won't be able to see this necessarily, but the way she's laid the poem out on the page is beautiful, and the section about the money spider spooling down, she's arranged the words in such a way that it looks like the spider spooling down the page. It's fantastic.
Is that how you always write? Do you have to do that sort of visual thing if there's a particular metaphor?
Yes, I do actually. I think it's really important how you lay stuff out. It's part of the poem. If the poem's to be read on the page, you know, some poems are made to be heard. Some are both, and I think that is both actually. That one, but it's so important to the way the poem is received, the way it looks, and I do a lot of that, and because I am a visual kind of freak as well, and I'm a bit anal about stuff like that. But so it's really important to me how it looks. The punctuation's really important. The line breaks are really important. It's all part of it. You know, it's all part of the feel of it, really, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, Janet, thank you so much for spending some time with us on International Women's Day, in your birthday week as well, we should add.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much.
We would give you a rendition of Happy Birthday, but we probably won't.
No, I don't think our listeners need that.
Well, Janet, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on International Women's Day, in your birthday week as well, we should say. So many happy returns. It's quite a good week to have a birthday, isn't it? It's feels a bit significant.
Oh, it's great. It's really great. Yeah. I just wish my birthday was on actual Women's Day.
Every year. Yeah.
We've had some poetry. We've had a little bit of chat. I think we should end the show with some music then this afternoon. We need a bit of a International Women's Day anthem, don't we?
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, we were chatting before we came on air about particular songs. And I think, to be fair, Janet, you nailed it with your suggestion.
Oh, yeah. I Am Woman by Helen Reddy, which my mum and dad had the LP, so I know all the words. And it's great lyrics.
Well, Janet, thank you very much. We're going to play out with that, and we will be back on Monday just after 2.
All that remains to be said is Happy International Women's Day, and we hope you find your balance.